I came home at the wrong time one day and learned a lot of interesting things about my husband. What could be worse than coming home at the wrong time? I learned what it meant to come face to face with the betrayal of the man I loved. My perfect marriage turned out to be less than perfect when I found my husband in the arms of another woman, but that was just the beginning. I struggled with pain and insecurity as I tried to cope with the betrayal and shocking revelations that came over me. I was sure that everything was fine in my life, that my family was peaceful. 10 years of marriage, a job, a teenage daughter. Yes, of course, there were moments when my husband and I argued, but nothing serious. He was a wonderful father and loved his daughter very much. The moment she was born, he was filled with boundless happiness, and I could feel our family growing stronger. His job was not easy. He often had to stay late or go on business trips, but I realized how important his career was to both of us. His success at work allowed us to live comfortably, to travel, to buy nice things. Sometimes I even envied his success because my job was much more modest, but I tried not to show it. Instead, I focused on home and family. Yes, there were times when he came in tired and irritated, and I, on the contrary, wanted to talk or share something important. Sometimes there were disagreements, but we both tried to make concessions and find compromises. I believed that the main thing was love and respect for each other, and everything else could be solved. 10 years passed like that. We celebrated holidays, had family dinners, discussed plans for the future. I thought I knew everything about my husband, that there were no secrets between us. But, as it turned out, I was wrong. My husband and I celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. It was a special day for both of us, and we decided to celebrate in a big way. It had long been a dream of ours to go to a ski resort, to ski, enjoy the winter scenery, and just relax as a couple. We had been planning this trip for a long time, dreaming about how we would spend our days on the slopes and evenings by the fireplace in a cozy hotel. However, fate had it differently. A week before his departure, his company encountered unforeseen difficulties and he had to stay behind. I was frankly disappointed. Our plans were falling apart right before my eyes, and I even considered canceling the trip altogether. But my husband insisted that I go alone with a friend. "You deserve a vacation," he said, and I couldn't resist such an argument. We sent our daughter to my parents' house so she could have a vacation without us too. So when I got ready to go on the road, I was in high spirits. I imagined how I would be skiing, enjoying the fresh mountain air, and how in the evening my friend and I would share our impressions over a cup of hot chocolate. Everything at the resort was exactly as I had imagined. Snowy slopes, clean air, cozy cafes. My friend and I had a great time the first 2 days, enjoying every moment. However, on the third day, I wanted to try snowboarding. During the descent, I had an unfortunate fall and hurt my arm. The pain was sharp, but I tried not to panic. A friend helped me to the medical center, where a doctor examined me and confirmed that it was just a sprain. My arm was bandaged and I was advised to avoid exertion. My friend offered to stay, but I suddenly felt a strong urge to go home. Perhaps it was because I missed my family a lot. Although everything was great at the resort, the thought of home kept me awake. I decided that I would rather spend the rest of my days at home than suffer from loneliness and pain. So, I packed my things and headed back home. My mind was spinning with thoughts of how nice it would be to see my husband and daughter, to tell them everything that had happened. I even imagined how the three of us would have an evening of family memories of the good old days. But as it turned out later, my expectations were far from reality. When I finally got home that evening, I was in for a surprise. But not the kind of surprise you expect after a vacation. When I opened the door, I heard strange noises coming from the bedroom. My feet felt like they were stuck to the floor, and my heart beat faster. Slowly, step by step, I walked to the door and, opening it, saw something that literally paralyzed me on the spot. My husband was in bed with another woman. Everything happened so instantly and absurdly that at first I simply could not believe what my eyes were seeing. Shock? That's probably too mild a word. I was stunned. All thoughts instantly left my head. I stood there, unable to utter a word, just watching this picture that didn't fit in my mind. We had a good life. Sure, we had our problems, but didn't anyone have any? Small quarrels, misunderstandings, tiredness after work, all this is a common thing in any family, but such a thing. Never, even in the darkest fantasies, I could not imagine that my husband is capable of such meanness. After all, we lived together for 10 years, built a life together, raised a child. How could he betray me so easily? I don't remember how long I stood there, petrified with shock. My mind was spinning with many thoughts. How could I not see the signs? Why did he decide to change? But the answers to those questions didn't come. Instead, there was only a feeling of emptiness and betrayal. My husband tried to convince me that it was just an accidental mistake, that he was remorseful. He claimed that he had lost control, that it had been a fleeting impulse that he now regretted. But his words sounded unnatural, like some lowbrow melodrama. I had a feeling that something was wrong. His explanations seemed too drawn out, too convenient. How could he make excuses for himself so easily? Why should I believe this was the first time something like this had happened? So I started digging deeper. I started going through his phone, his email, his social media. At first I hoped I wouldn't find anything suspicious, that it was all really a coincidence. But the more I searched, the clearer it became that this woman was far from the only one. My husband had several affairs on the side. Each new discovery was like a knife to the heart. I couldn't believe that a man I had known for so many years could do such a thing. How could he keep this from me? How could he look me in the eye and pretend to love me? At first I tried to convince myself that it was a misunderstanding, that he had simply lost his way, but the facts spoke for themselves. With each new discovery, I felt my faith in him melt away, the ground slipping away from under my feet. I was hurt, scared. I didn't know how to move on. Every day I woke up thinking it was all a dream, but the reality was brutal. My self-confidence was fading every day. I began to doubt that I was even worth a man's attention. Maybe I really had become less attractive, or maybe I wasn't trying hard enough for our marriage. These thoughts plagued me every night. I would look at my reflection in the mirror and see a stranger. What happened to the confident woman I once was? Where had all that passion and vitality that always drove me forward gone? I felt completely devastated, broken. How could I have missed all those signals? How could I have been so blind? But the most devastating discovery awaited me ahead. One day, while browsing social media, I noticed one of his followers. Going to her page, I noticed that he was regularly commenting and liking her posts. I didn't pay attention to it at first. It was probably a coworker or longtime friend. But the more I read, the more a cold feeling gripped me from the inside. I learned from the correspondence and photos that he had a child out of wedlock. This news hit me like an avalanche. It turned out that he supported this woman financially and sometimes met with the child. These meetings took place secretly, when he was supposedly on business trips or at business meetings. All those lies, all those years. How could he do that? How could he keep another child from me? That moment was the final point for me. I felt betrayed twice. First as a wife and then as a mother. My world literally collapsed. This news completely shattered what little trust I still had left. I felt crushed, humiliated, abandoned. The world around me no longer made sense. Everything I'd built was built on sand. Now I stood on the wreckage of my life, not knowing how or why to move on. In those days I almost stopped sleeping. Constant tension, fear of the future, anger at my husband, it all mixed up in my head. I lost interest in life, stopped enjoying the little things. Nothing seemed to make sense to me anymore. Work, friends, family, everything lost its value. I was already thinking about divorce, although the thought of having to start my life all over again scared me to the point of trembling. My daughter noticed that something was going on between my husband and me, but I tried to stay as calm as possible. My husband apologized. He said he loved me, that he wanted to keep the family together. But every time I looked at him, all I saw was a liar and a traitor. How can you trust a man who has deceived you for years? Nevertheless, after some time of reflection, I decided to give him a chance, and my daughter's heart goes out to her daddy. We began to restore our relationship. My husband himself suggested we see a psychologist. We attended therapy sessions and tried to understand each other. However, there was still an emptiness inside me. Every morning I got up with a heavy heart, not knowing what lay ahead of me. The days stretched slowly, like a viscous mass, and more often I found myself thinking that I couldn't see a way out of this impasse. Despite my best efforts, our conversations remained superficial and our feelings frozen. I tried to hold on for my daughter's sake, but it was getting harder every day. One day we went to a party. It was an attempt to bring some joy back into our lives. My husband was being friendly, joking, laughing. It seemed like things were getting better. The guests were having fun, the music was playing, the atmosphere was light and relaxed. I even began to relax, allowing myself to smile and participate in general conversations. But here he started to pay attention to one of the guests. I noticed him walk over to her, take her hand, and whisper something in her ear. A flame of jealousy and rage erupted inside me. Instantly, all the good feelings evaporated, replaced by an icy wave of distrust and anger. I couldn't believe it was happening again. How could he allow himself to behave like this, especially after everything we'd been through? I walked over to him, trying to keep my emotions in check. 1,000 thoughts flashed through my mind. What to say, how to react, whether I should make a scene right here. Before I could say anything, however, he looked at me and obviously realized that I'd already found out everything. "Are you serious?" I shouted, looking straight into my husband's eyes. "You're flirting with someone in front of me." I stepped toward him and slapped him. His face instantly turned pale and he tried to say something, but the words stuck in his throat. I watched him try to find an explanation, but I wasn't going to listen to him anymore. My nerves were on edge and I couldn't take it anymore. I turned around abruptly, grabbed my purse, and headed for the exit. The door slammed shut behind me with a loud bang, echoing in my ears. After walking a few steps, I stopped, trying to collect my thoughts. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them escape. I walked forward, not paying attention to the passers-by, not thinking about where I was going. The only desire I had at that moment was to get away from all of this. His hypocrisy, his lies, his ruined life. I felt really bad. That's when I got a call from my mom. She asked me to come over. I agreed. When I got home, I packed my things and left with my daughter. I left my husband a letter saying that I couldn't forgive what had happened, that our relationship was ruined and I saw no point in trying to repair it, so I was filing for divorce. A few days of peace and quiet helped me get my thoughts together. I realized that I don't want to go back to the way things were before. I deserve better.